We arrive at the Temple of Speed for the third round here in the Wednesday Championships. Rumor has it that it may rain here Wednesday evening in Monza, and with qualifying begun, it might throw up some excitement. I'm Dan van Zutphen, your lead commentator here today. Next to me, our co-commentator and broadcaster, Jesse Lee.
Yes, hello Dan, hello everybody at home. I've got to turn my mic down because I'm way too loud in comparison to you, but that is indeed what we're dealing with here today. It is a mixed condition, or at least it was off into practice. Now, not quite so chaotic as the track is fully fast here in quali, and I once again have all the buttons in the world in front of me, so everyone at home, I do apologize if things go a bit pear-shaped at some point. Dan, we're at one of the temples of speed. We're at Monza. It's memeable for its turn one, but it is still a fascinating racetrack to be at.
It's a fascinating racetrack indeed, not only for the race itself, but for qualifying to the precision you have to have here as a driver is absolutely key. We have precision corners like Ascari, which the Ford Mustang apparently struggles in. We have heard some Ford Mustang drivers not being able to tackle Ascari without sliding, which is really interesting. However, Ford Mustang were doing good times in the practice session, so we'll see how that does in qualifying too. But it's all about precision here, really. You don't have a lot of ground to make up in the corners, because it doesn't have many corners. It does have a lot of straights, so you really need to make the most out of every exit and entry in a lap. You can see Phil Roberts possibly putting the first lap time on the board, or going for his first qualifying run. Phil Roberts currently in the P15 McLaren as he tackles turn one again. It's a late breaker and an early breaker at the same time. You really need to make the most of the braking zone and hit your entry really early, then get a good exit on the exit, of course. And Phil Roberts doesn't really seem to nail the entry, but he might be able to get a better exit. And you're already on turn two. Brake roughly around the 150 meter board, 100 meter board, and get yourself nicely aligned for the exit of turn two, because it's really the most important thing. Then on to the first Lesmo. Tricky as it is, then after the first Lesmo, you go to the second Lesmo, which is almost the same corner, but just not quite the same. And then of course you go to Ascari. Lots of time to think about Ascari, almost too much time to think. This McLaren is stable, so I won't be expecting to see any sliding around in Ascari here with Phil Roberts on board, braking roughly around the 100 meter spots, tackling the curbs once again in the middle and at the exit. And then, well, you've almost done a lap. Only you need to tackle Curva Parabolica, which is not easy. Really focus on the exit, and well, that's a lap done with Phil Roberts in Monza.
Yeah, it is deceptively easy looking, but the reality is quite the contrary. It's quite a difficult racetrack to wrap your head around when hot lapping around here, and passing sometimes can lead to bigger dramas. Phil Roberts slots in at a 149.217. That'll put them 13th. Currently, Luca Falasca, who was the quickest in practice by 32/100ths, is already at the top of the field here in quali. A 48.080, good enough to best Jordan Daly by 2/1000ths on that very first lap. Ben Reese in third place, over a tenth and a half, I should say, off of that time, sharing the second row with RCI's own John Dalton.
The gaps are close. As you can see, Jordan Daly only 0.002 behind Luca Falasca, behind the homemade Italian here. Ben Riffs in the Aston Martin. Can he improve on his time? Yes, he goes to the top of the board with a 147.7, and that's 3/10 faster than the Italian Ford Mustang driver who was on pole. And with 9 minutes to go, the track is improving. Currently, it's a fast track. 32 degrees on track temperature, 25 degrees on ambient temperature. Can Tom Shipston improve on his time in the number 60 BMW? Yes, he can. Goes to P5, but qualifying isn't over, as we can see Joey Dauber in the 777 Ferrari. He also goes very close to that pole position time, but not all has been said and done with 8 minutes remaining. Again, we can see a little bit of Ford Mustangs doing a pretty decent job. We can see in the midfield Kuisma, Varga, Whiffle and Ted Edwards all in a Ford Mustang, and it's going to be a very interesting, well, battle of manufacturers now that, of course, the Ford Mustang has been introduced, because it's not been very long in the game, has it been, Jesse?
No, it really hasn't. A lot of these drivers, it wouldn't surprise me as Ted Edward goes P9 with a 48.4 flat. It wouldn't surprise me if this was the first time they'd brought this car. I was listening to some of the conversation down in the garage area prior to today's race, and it kind of lends itself to that this is not a track that they would have done a lot of practice on, especially in the weird conditions we've had. We had rain at the very beginning of practice, or at the end, or excuse me, right before practice started, we had rain, and it dried out, and it was mostly a green racetrack for practice. So how much did they actually learn in the official session? I would wager not a whole ton, as Nico Kuisma is about to jump up massive style all the way inside the top 5. It's a 48.025. That'll slot them into 4th place. But added to the relative newness of the car and the weird weather conditions, a lot of these drivers, especially if you're in a Mustang, they don't have the same sort of confidence that some of these other manufacturers might have. Jake Howling a lap ago just did it now, just improved again to a 48.305. That takes provisional pole in silver away from Nicole Fox, who had it for about the first half of quali. 3rd place now belongs to Ollie Mulder in the silver class. The silver class, Dan, has been an absolute treat to watch the last few rounds.
Yes, I can definitely imagine the standings are close. Ollie Mulder currently leading the Silver Championship ahead of Nicola Fox only by 6 points, and behind that is Bruno Teixeira, the Portuguese, with 111 points. So we can expect a lot more from the silver class. It's really close, and it definitely entertains us with some good racing. I do also expect some silver class to be up there with the pro drivers, given Monza is, well, such a tight track. We can see it in the quali times. Currently P16 only a second off, and then Jackson with the 1.1 seconds off in the number 89 Porsche. So we can expect a lot of the silver class. We can expect a lot of the pro class as well. We can still see Jordan Daly currently in P4. He's currently leading the GT3 Pro category, just in front of Joey Dauber with 134 points. Joey Dauber is on 130 points. So it's close in the Silver Championship, but Jesse is even closer in the Pro Championship.
Yeah, it really is, and so is qualifying. Ben Reese at the top with a 47.742, but Marco Badowski coming right back at him. 3/1000ths of a second, the difference between the top couple of cars, and that is how close it's been in the championship. Of course, we'll have full championship points after the conclusion of qualifying today. Carlos Collodi, it's taken a couple laps and trying to figure it out. Well, he's definitely done a better job of it that time for Rebound Racing. It's a 48.342. It gets them at minimum closer to where they reckon they should be running. Nicole Fox just set an absolute stonking time. She's run a 47.850 for next round racing, and that is huge. Not only does that get them clear of Jake Howling and Peter Varga, who has just jumped up to P3, that also puts them well up inside the top 10 and indeed the top 5 as well. That's more what we expect, and I would worry a little bit of time left on the clock. I would reckon some of these other silver drivers that have been hounding Fox all season long, might they also improve?
It will definitely make those silver drivers sweat, because the gap to Howling is 4 tenths, and that might not seem a lot, but because Monza is Well, you can almost call it a small track with not a lot of turns, 5.7 kilometers. It is a lot of time on the table for the silver drivers as well as the pro drivers. We can see Richard Whittle currently having a really nice tow of a Ford Mustang up ahead, and that's an important key, of course, in qualifying. How are you going to distribute your laps? Do you want to run them in clean air? Do you want to run them in slipstream but maybe have a little bit of dirty air and possibly, well, compromise your exit a little bit, as we could see Richard Whittle having a little bit of an oversteer correction, but over the line with a nice tow. It doesn't seem to be an improvement. It is not a 5/10 of the lead, and so P11 it stays. We can see a race replay here. Jordan Bobbins in the Ferrari gets held up by traffic a little bit. I do think that was intentional, purely because Jordan Bobbins was a little bit frustrated by the BMW just not timing their pit lane exit correctly.
Yeah, that was Daniel Bouchard who they had contact with. I don't know if Bouchard was sitting there on the entry of turn one or if they were just going quite slowly or what exactly happened. A miscommunication, certainly. Same thing happened here for Team Monkey Racing's Marco Badowski, who has completely had to abandon this lap, and they may elect to come back down pit lane really quickly and leave again with a fresh set of Pirelli P0s and go back out. They would have enough time to do a warm-up lap and a full lap, but they're not doing that. They feel that they've not damaged the tires or the car in any way. They will continue, albeit a little bit behind schedule from where they were. To turn one, always a little bit of a choke point here for the race and qualifying. I think that illustrates that quite nicely indeed. And you got to be very wary of turn number one. And I ask everybody this, Dan, so I'll ask you, start of this race, where would you prefer to be in this field? Up front and maybe be at the mercy of drivers braking behind you? Would you rather be in the middle and take the gamble? Or would you rather be in the back and observe everything before you get involved?
Well, you know, I always have a set of mirrors to keep an eye on the cars behind us that just go to 9th place. You can also dictate, because it's a rolling start here at Monza, you can always dictate when you go on throttle, and so you'll always have this 2/3 braking advantage when going into turn one. Jordan Daly goes to the top of the table, and that might be very important. He still has a lap if he decides to continue. Jordan Daly, currently the championship leader with a 1:47.515, just 1/10 ahead of Velasquez in the Ford. Ford Mustang seems to be doing a great job here. Of course, Ford Mustang does be known for the high-powered cars, and so I think their GT3 definitely is. But to answer your question, Jesse, I'd be rather at the front.
Yeah, I always say that there's only one safe place here at Monza, and that's in the pit lane. But I would rather take my, I would rather take my chances. I'd rather start in the front. But though I will say, there's a lot of drivers, including me, that get this sort of sick satisfaction of starting at the back and working their way through the field and seeing how far they can make it up through. And I think some drivers take that challenge. I've seen, whether Mike Redford did it intentionally or not, I've seen him do stuff like that. I've seen a couple of other drivers try and do the exact same thing to great effect. In fact, we've had a couple of times as qualifying ends, all flying laps will count, of course. Ted Edwards has abandoned his lap in the Parabolica. The 808 has been sitting in Ascari for some time now. That's Trevor Byford. They're creating a yellow flag situation, but they are off of the track and they are in no danger. They are not putting anyone in any danger. And you talked about maybe Jordan Daly with that lap of a 47.515 looking to improve. Well, he was improving until he came through Ascari. He lost all that time. He's about even on the relative. And yes, he's going to end up about 5/100ths off of his ultimate pace. That will be the end of qualifying, but that is still the mark to beat. But Luca Velasquez in the Proton livery number 32 Mustang is looking to do some Vettling here, and he might do it, and he has done. A 47.440 good enough for provisional pole here today, and it might be a Ford lockout at the front. Velasquez quickest in practice, looking like he's going to be quickest in qualifying.
Yes, indeed, but we still have the Ferrari, the 777 Ferrari of Joey Darber for rebound race, and can he maybe grab pole position, maybe grab a top 3 over the line, almost the last car to come over the line. Yes, he does, he grabs pole
Wow.
position by not a lot of margin, but Joey Darber, the last really competitive car to get a time in, makes use of that grippier track, and indeed, Jesse slots it in pole position. Peter Varga goes to P12.
Peter Varga goes P2 in their class, P12 overall. Nicole Fox still the driver that looks to be on provisional pole. There's one car, I think, out there on the racetrack. I think it's the 720 at Teixeira. I'm actually quite confused. This car's showing to me that it's not on a valid lap, but it's allowing them to finish their lap anyway. I'm not sure if that's the usual behavior of ACC, but I'm pretty sure normally it only counts if you're on a valid. No, so okay, so my tool was wrong. It was reporting red as if it was invalid. It was not invalid, and there you have it.
On the minimap it did show invalid too, but it doesn't matter anyway. Fastest first sector for the homemade Italian Velasquez in the Ford Mustang. Joey Darber has the fastest second sector, 37.665, and Jordan Daly, so all of the top 3, has a faster sector in hand, a 34.780, and we can see the Ford Mustangs to be really quick in that last sector, mainly probably because of their power. And we can see the Ferrari of Joey Darber, he struggles a little bit in that last sector, loses 2/10 on Jordan Daly, but quite competitive quali we've had here. We can see Nicola Fox, she grabs pole position for the silver class in the 313 McLaren, followed by Peter Varga second in the silver class, and then Mulder, he gets third in silver class in the AMR V8 Fantas GT3, which we do not see very often, Jesse.
No, we sure don't, but it is good to see so much brand parity here in the series indeed. And right before we take you to the championship standings, one reminder about the silver class: Fox, Varga, and Mulder, the top 3. Howling, Teixeira is the top 5. Take a look at that and make special note of that in your mind. I can guarantee you, based on the couple of races we've had, that is not how that is going to finish today. Silver has been very exciting as well. Unfortunately, the pro field is the one that stole the show last time out, actually a couple of times, with some crazy races. Well, from how they'll line up today to the championship standings, how about you take it away, Mr. Dan?
Yes, in the pro category, we've got Jordan Daly and Joey Darber as described in 1-2, 134 points for Daly, 130 points for Darber. The German Marco Badowski slots in P3 with 119 points, followed by Luca Velasquez, the only Italian in the top 10 with 112. Rafael Hull for the top 5 completes the top 5 with 104 points. Followed by Nico Kuisma, Ted Edwards, Carlos Calatayud, John Dalton's got 75 points, and Richard Whittle slots out the top 10 with 71 points. Then Grim Lilith, almost the only controller driver with 68 points. Portuguese Manso, 63 points. Ben Rees with 62 points. Tom Shipston in P14. Aaron Jackson P15. Phil Roberts, the Welshman, in P16. Mike Redford with 34 points in P17. Matt Malcolm in P18 with 25 points. And the ones with a dot have yet to score points. Then onto the silver category, as described, Ollie Mulder has got 136 points, followed by German driver Nicola Fox with 130 points. Bruno Teixeira slots out the top 3 with 111 points. Peter Varga and Martin Foster are on the same points, P4, P5 shared. Jake Howland's got P6 with 92 points. Cormac Malloy, the American's got 88 points in his AMR V8 Vantage. Adam Carlisle, then the Britishman, has 84 points. Jordan Bubbins with 74 points. And Peter Lundqvist in 71 points slots out the top 10. Then Keith Whiffle has got 65 points, followed by Trevor Byford, the Britishman. He's got 54 points. Hubert Hauser in P13, Ibiza Racer in P14. Everyone with 0 points have yet to score points, and the ones with a dot they are not competing in the championship anymore.
Yes, indeed. Of course, a lot of new signups in the silver class. We saw Daniel Bouchard, one of those cars as well, and a couple of cars still yet to score, but still alive in this championship. Still early days, round 3, but we have been talking about that championship quite a lot. And why? Because it has been so very, very close and evenly matched amongst a couple of drivers, and that makes it really exciting as we near the halfway point in today's race. Dan, what are you looking for out of today's event here at Monza?
Probably looking for a lot of carnage purely for entertainment's sake, but I do hope for the drivers there won't be. I expect some turn-1 crashes. I expect some fierce battles between some Ferraris, BMWs and Ford Mustang. They are in the mix as well. I don't think a lot of people know how the Ford Mustang will behave. It's a brand new car, and not everyone is familiar with driving the Ford Mustang and battling the Ford Mustang as well. So that's going to be really interesting here. So chaos pit stop strategies, if I'm correct, everyone has a mandatory pit stop to do. And well, just a lot of action in general. And I hope for some spicing up in the championship as well, Jesse.
Well, it's going to take a lot of chilies to make this more spicy than it's already been. But if there's one thing I know, is that Monza tends to provide that. And in the end, we end up with some really good racing, some battles. A lot of the time, it may shock some newer viewers to know that a lot of times the battles here are settled in the pit lane. Who has the best strategy ends up winning, because there's often not enough on the track to separate them out. Nicole Fox, pictured here in the silver class, has a healthy gap and a wealth of knowledge to go along with that. What does Nicole need to do to guarantee a dub today and stay in the championship lead?
Excuse me, she needs to play it safe and really, well, she knows she's fast, and we've seen it in qualifying. Nicole, she is really fast, and I think she can just play it safe. There are a lot of pro drivers in front of her first, second silver driver, and so I'd say just take it relaxed, do what you can do, do not what you can't do. Don't take any, well, almost any risk really, because she's fast again. She probably knows what she's doing as well, and she does have a lot to lose, especially with such a good qualifying round in Monza. So playing safe is my bet here, Jesse.
Playing it safe. I think it's going to be the opposite for Nicole Fox today. I think they're going to be incredibly aggressive, and you never know. A couple of cars in front of you have issues today, and then all of a sudden you may win this race outright. We have had silver overall winners here in the past, and that of course down to the pace, but also down to the strategy sometime. All the cars on the grid today, they're making their final preparations as they drop off the jacks and getting ready to go out on the pace lap here. 1 hour, a pit stop in there somewhere, and the skies don't look none too happy, but we don't believe there's going to be any major weather or any precipitation, at least, coming our way today. That mostly happened in practice and prior to practice here today. Well, we went over some of the strategy of the race, and we've talked about where we would prefer to start if we had our personal preferences. So I'll ask you now, Dan, dreaded T1 at Monza. How do you survive T1 at Monza? How do you avoid the major calamity that we expect to see?
I've done it again. There's not really a guideline of surviving T1. The thing is with starts, you don't plan a start as a driver, because as soon as you plan a start, it will go wrong. You need to react to what happens at the start. So it's just really your reflexes and your instincts guiding you through a start. So it really depends on everyone else around you. What is everyone else doing? What's in your mirrors? What's in front of you? Who wants to go for a move? Who doesn't? And who slows down? And who wants to take it risky? So you really survive a T1 at Monza, or any T1, to just survive your instincts, have good spatial awareness, and know what you can do and know what you can't do and know what you want to do in a race. Because I can see Marco Badowski, for example, he's currently in P6, he knows he's fast. Maybe he didn't have that much of a great qualifying session, and at that point you could say, all right, I know I'm fast, I know I'm faster than the guys ahead of me, let's go aggressive. But let's say Joey Darber has a surprising pole position. Maybe he didn't even knew he could get a pole position out of the back. You could say, for Joey Darber's sake, I'm gonna play it safe. I'm gonna look a lot in my mirrors. I'm gonna brake early at T1. It's going to be interesting, but it's just all about survival instinct, knowing the drivers around you and knowing how to react around you, Jesse.
Yeah, I think you're right in that. I think it is one of those situations where you've got to use your best head, and you've got to make sure that whatever decision you make is decisive instead of divisive. And that is one of the other keys to this race, is whatever you do, make sure that you're confident in it. Don't go in two-footed, as the British would say, but also make sure that you're doing things with the best interest of yourself and everybody else out on the racetrack. Everybody lining up 2x2, getting ready to go racing here. Mike Redford was lamenting that they were quite slow here today, and they're not entirely sure why that is. Also, the lack of weather, or the lack of potential weather, was debated in the chat. Joe Dauber revealed that they had never really driven this car at this racetrack today, but they feel a little bit blessed that maybe they just hit the right lap at the right time. I think we can all agree that the Rebound Racing 777 hit an absolutely brilliant lap. 2x2 around the Parabolica and down the straight they are. 27 cars, 26 actually, are going to take the green flag here today, and it's a long old run down the pit straight until they are released. Everybody collectively hold your breath. Take it away, Dan Van Zutphen.
Who's gonna risk it and who isn't? Joe Darber doesn't accelerate just yet, and he does accelerate right now in the 777 Ferrari, but you can see the Mustang has a very good start and he's already outrunning him. So Joe Darber needs to send it on the inside. Does he want to retain his lead, and can he do it? No, it just seems too short or too long of a braking zone, and then it's the Mustang that took over the lead. We can see some carnage, some usual carnage in T1. We can see McLarens off the road, contacts with Ford Mustangs, and we can see, I think that is a Ford Mustang who has quite some damage at the front. A Ferrari who has some damage as well at the front, if my eyes don't deceive me. Whose Ferrari that exactly is, I can't say, but turn 1 is survived, turn 2 isn't survived. Oh, he sees some McLaren coming into the back of that Ford Mustang. Again, the same McLaren running wide, Jesse. Happening all sorts of things. Porsche flashing with his light. That is the McLaren of Carlos Calatayud coming into the back of a McLaren. But the homemade Italian Luca Falasca has currently taken over the lead at his home track, Joe Joey Darber is chasing in the 777 Ferrari, and Jordan Daly Jesse is third, as we can see Tom Shipston trying to overtake Marco Badowski, or defending Marco Badowski, coming into Ascari. And it seems that Tom Shipston just has done enough for that 4th position. Yes, you can see Marco Badowski in that Ferrari still behind, and Jesse, a lot of things going on, but a lot of things will still happen.
Yeah, it was a very close, contested start of this race. Joe Dauber is able to hang on to second place. Luca Velasco was able to get around him, though, in the chaos. We were watching a little bit further back, but Velasco just put a move on Dauber, and that might have been in the Curva Grande where that actually occurred. But Joe has not allowed Velasco to drive away. Daly's cleanly up into third. Shipston, Badowski, the top 5. Nicole Fox, I'm pretty sure, got put in a disadvantageous position very early on, and they might have backed out of a 3 wide, and that would have led to them losing at least a couple of positions. Everybody continuing to fight for spots here, and they're getting quite close indeed. Phil Roberts for Kaiju, powered by Slowpoke Juice, trademarked of course. They are attempting to get one over on Carlos Caladian here, and everyone trying to not go into the back of Jake Howling, who is the Porsche directly in front of them there. Phil Roberts, though, trying to make that happen. Actually, no, that is Carlos Caladian. That's not Jake Howling. That's Carlos Caladian. Phil Roberts is in the middle. That's Grim Lilith in the back of that train. 3 different manufacturers' cars. Don't know how I got that crossed up in my head. A lot of contact early on in that lap. Things calmed down a little bit. We'll show you some of those highlights of the early chaos. Try to give you a little bit better perspective.
And Rice currently in that Aston Martin doing a solid job in P7. Grim Lilith currently driving with a controller P15 in at 115 Ferrari. The Ferrari seems to be doing good, seems to be doing decent. We can see 2 Ferraris, of course, at top with Marco Badowski and Joey Darber driving in one, but for the rest of it, the Ferrari just isn't quite there. That's why I say decent. We can see a few top drivers, a few lower drivers. Grim Lilith, as I say, P15, Jordan Bobbins in P23 in a number 65 Ferrari. Seems like Ferrari just doesn't have the straight line speed, but it does have great acceleration and great cornering ability, and that's something the Ford Mustang do sometimes struggle with it. So you could almost say 2 opposites of each other battling each other. Phil Roberts, in any case, in a McLaren is a totally different car, and we can see some action up behind them as well. Still close gaps at the Monza. You can almost call it a speedway, because it was in the past a speedway. Of course, a little oval was made in the very beginning. John Dalton, as we see a race replay. Now what's happening here? It is for John Dalton. He's battling a McLaren. Who that is, I can't quite say. Do we see some contact here, or do we see some nice defending moves?
Just an overtake there. I assume that
yes,
that was John Dalton on Nicole Fox, and apparently that occurred before the Curva Grande. I thought that pass occurred in that corner. It didn't. It happened in turn 1. So John Dalton up a spot there on Nicole Fox as everyone continues to fight for position. A couple of cars lost out. Ollie Mulder is one of them, and I do believe I can show you why that occurred.
Yeah, we can see some great action here in the middle pack. Some dominoes effect, really. We can see a Mustang get spun around, and
Ted Edwards got spun.
Yes, I think it was indeed. You can really recognize the colors of that Ford Mustang from Ted Edwards, and that's a shame because I think he qualified quite well. Yes, he only lost 2 positions right there. 1 position, really, no 2 positions. So it could have been way worse, but some contact was made and some inevitable damage. As you can see, a Porsche fight Porsche vs Porsche and the McLaren behind. Porsche howling, Jake howling in the... Oh, we can see a lot of kicking off here currently with 6 minutes have passed. As you can see, Jake howling, the Porsche just trying to fend off another Porsche. That Edwards in the Ford Mustang is just up ahead, or is that Peter Varga? Yes, I think it is Peter Varga actually in the Ford Mustang trying to battle Carlos Calatayud in the Porsche.
You're absolutely correct. Oh, was that Grim Lilith? It was in the 115, just completely throwing it off the racetrack. Jake howling contact there. Doesn't quite make it to the Tech Pro barrier, and they're going to be able to rejoin, but it's going to be a lot of time and positions lost. They were running 13th. They're going to be 22nd as they enter the Lesmos.
Yes, that is really unfortunate for Jake Howling. Didn't seem to, see the Ferrari or McLaren up ahead. Made contact. We can see, I think, a race replay. Oh, the Scrim Lilith going indeed, cutting the track there.
Oh,
just a miscommunication there. Yeah, the Scrim Lilith cut the track there. Wanted to move away, let the drivers pass, but did not know the Porsche driver was in his mirror. And that's one of those very unfortunate Monza incidents, Jesse.
Jordan Daly has just overtaken Joe Dauber for P2. Something happened to Dauber, maybe just a momentary mistake, and that has allowed Daly up into that position. Aaron Jackson has just had a solo incident in Ascari, the first major one of the day. And just lost it exiting Ascari and hit the wall a ton.
Yes, that's quite a big hit, and there will probably be some suspension damage for that 89 Porsche. Such a shame, but you know, Ascari is a difficult corner, not only for the Mustangs, but also for the entire field as well. And he does demonstrate the number 89 Porsche driver. Sadly, luckily for him, we still have a second race, 2 30-minute races here today in the, newly formatted Wednesday Championship. As we can see, Joey Darber indeed still in P3, qualified on pole position. If you just tuned in, that's Jordan Daly going over the grass, losing some time there compared to Joey Darber and Velasquez, and having some dirty tires definitely, but he hasn't lost that position yet. So he might be able to fend Joey Darber off a little longer. As we can see, Carlos Calatayud in the Porsche trying to fight that Edwards for the 10th place in this race. 21 minutes to go. Who's gonna take the 10th place in this stage of the race? Carlos Calatayud on the outside of Ascari would be quite ballsy, but that Edwards just having the better in the braking zone in that Ford Mustang, and so for now stays ahead of the Spaniard Carlos Calatayud. As we can see, Peter Varga in that Ford Mustang really struggling. It's not something we're used to see from Peter Varga, someone who struggles this much. He's currently doing a great job in P12, but we usually see Peter Varga a little bit higher up, as Carlos Calatayud almost loses the rear completely there, but just saves a little neck of oversteer and trying to battle Ted Edwards. It's remarkable that Carlos Calatayud is almost on such a pace difference. He seems to be gaining on Ted Edwards every corner, as we can see him trying it on the outside, having a little look, but Ted Edwards closing it. Oh, that's a massive incident, Jesse.
Yeah, it sure is, and let's wait for that to pop up and see exactly what happened there. And more incident as Varga's just trying to get the car going back the right way, but the damage has been done. I think that's we're going to see, this is going to be from Carlos Calatayud's perspective. We're going to jump to Varga here and see exactly what happened. They just came together, and it looks like the 225 of Phil Roberts, that accordion effect, as Varga just barely was going to break up in time, or maybe they weren't. Maybe the contact was inevitable, but for the 508 Team Monkey Racing Mustang, it has gone a little bit pear-shaped for them. That drops them well down the order. Nicole Fox leads over Ollie Mulder and Martin Foster, the top three in that category now, as a couple of the other drivers that were up there in the Silver Series, Jake Howling and Varga, have now found themselves with a little spot of damage. Phil Roberts brings the Slowpoke Juice Kaiju car down and into the pit lane, and of course that is sort of elected. By the way, I would like to apologize if I erroneously reported that there was a pit stop to give in today's race. That's not the case. That's on Mondays. This is, of course, Wednesday Champ. This is a sprint series, 2 30-minute races. No pit stops are required, so I do apologize for that error. But that means that we've got another race, and I got to ask you this. Oh my goodness, the Lamborghini of Lundqvist. I don't know if that was for fear of being run into or if that was just a mistake in the Parabolica, but that car, that Lamborghini, absolutely snapped right there, and that allowed Jake Howling by.
Yeah, it seemed. I don't think it seemed a reaction on Howling. It seemed that he was almost afraid to lose the rear, almost didn't lose the rear, and maybe overcorrected a little bit. Peter Lundqvist, the Swedish driver in the Lamborghini, doesn't really find the pace with the Lamborghini, finding some struggles as well. But with 18 minutes to go, he may be able to overtake Howling. But very remarkable, strange, almost incident, Peter Lundqvist. But well, he's still alive, Jesse. And if I'm not mistaken, you wanted to ask me something.
Yeah, I did. First of all, I'm going to report Eric in chat has told us that this driver, Ollie Mulder, has at least 15 seconds of damage from the early bumper car episode into turn 1, which that message was a little bit more grim. No pun intended. There is a grim in the field today, but no pun intended. It did seem a bit grim for Ollie Mulder whenever they were running 5th or 6th after that contact occurred. But because some of the other silver drivers have had their issues, that has put Ollie into P2. That's exactly where Mulder wants to be, and would obviously want to be challenging Fox. That doesn't look like it's going to be on here for race number 1, but they certainly now have the position over some of the other cars. So now it's Fox, Mulder, and Byford, the top 3 in that category. Jake Howling, though, is coming back through the silver field just a little bit. Out front in the field, Luca Falasca leading them all, and has done since lap number 1 after they took the lead off of Joe Dauber. Dauber must have bobbled about 3 or 4 laps ago. That allowed Jordan Daly through. They continued to fight each other, did Daly and Dauber for a few laps, but that fight has since calmed down a little bit, a little space afforded to them. That's your top 3 overall. No, I was going to ask you, Dan, though. Typically when you have these sprint format races, doesn't matter if it's a sim race or a real race, you have a calm race and then you have a chaotic one. Was that the chaotic one? I'm not sure. I think it was a little too respectful. I know there were cars getting bounced around, but that was a pretty okay start for this many cars barreling into T1 at Monza, and there's only been the one serious incident that I have seen after that, and that was also unfortunate because that was Grimm who took avoiding action to keep from plowing into somebody, trying to give the spots back and do the right thing, that didn't see a car trying to rejoin. So other than that, I think it was pretty calm. That makes me worry for race number 2. I'm curious what your thoughts are.
We of course had Aaron Jackson as well, just coming into the wall a bit after Ascari, as we see some lovely battling here. Jake Howling, again the Porsche driver, trying to tussle with Jordan Bobbins and Byford this time in the McLaren 808. Howling, we've seen a lot. Oh, that's the Porsche. That is that Carlos Calatayud. I think that is Carlos Calatayud, the Spaniard in just parked aside there. He must have had some sort of incident exiting Ascari there and doing a very safe rejoin, as we can see a race replay. It's a mistake on its own. Yes, exit of Ascari, touching the wall there, and I think Carlos Calatayud knows his race is over. Suspension damage, no doubt, and some aero damage as well. Trying to reverse that, tapping the rear again, why not? And that's a very unfortunate and a self-inflicted mistake for Carlos Calatayud. Hopefully he can do better for his sake in race 2. We still have a second race, of course, so stay with us, because the action isn't gone for this race as well. We're only halfway through the race and we've seen a lot of things, but it could be a little bit calmer. Who knows, Jesse? We do see some more aggressive moves being made because, it is a sprint race in ACC terms. Of course, 30 minutes isn't that great. You don't have to take accountability for fuel. You don't have to watch your tires, and so you can go pull out on your aggressiveness, depending on where you are in the field, of course. So I'm going to hope for a more chaotic race. That's my answer.
Well, the 225 has... Oh, crash into the background there. That's Lundqvist involved. A couple of other cars off, and that's huge damage for the Iron Lynx liveried number 99 Lamborghini. I believe it's the only one we have in the field. We'll see if we can... That certainly wouldn't be self-inflicted on a straight. You wouldn't imagine. I don't have a replay for it, but that doesn't seem right. So we're going to queue up a long one here.
Yes, Joey Howling lost control there, and Peter Lundqvist did, I think he got a little bit scared of the Porsche and maybe saw him a little bit too late, steered too aggressively to the left, and as a result lost control on the straight. So you could say that's a self-inflicted mistake, but it was of course to avoid the slower Joey Howling there. And it's a strange incident, but it's just a shame. He's still driving through though. We can see Peter Lundqvist, even though with that front damage, with a not so streamlined front end, he's still driving through. I think he must have some suspension damage as well, knowing the ACC damage physics. But you know, who knows? Peter Lundqvist might drop down the pack a little bit more. In any case, he keeps driving. P20 for the Swedish driver it is. You can see him, Bruno Teixeira, making contact. Yes.
Oh boy.
I think, yeah, such a shame, because I think that is sadly a result of driving at the track with too much damage while you shouldn't drive with too much damage on the track. Might be better to pit soon for Peter Lundqvist. But, you know, we still have another race to go. So, you know, all can be lost and all can be won, Jesse, in one race time.
Yeah, it's worth mentioning no live stewards here today. So any penalties you see are assigned by ACC. That's certainly one that might be handled in post-race. I just feel like Teixeira overran the corner there, went off into the grass, and just sort of hooked him to the left. And that's an unavoidable and very unfortunate incident. You know, it's not unfortunate, this battle we have for the lead. All three leaders here all together again. And Velasco, who has led this since the exit of turn one, we're assuming, has done a good job. But Daly got by Dauber, and now they've all caught back up to the lead. Two Mustangs and a Ferrari in this lead group. Badowski's up to fourth, but they're 3 seconds off, and they have a little bit bigger problems. They've got the BMW of Tom Shipston and the Ford of Nico Kuzma right behind them for fourth place. A little bit of a cork in the bottle is Badowski, though he's not any slouch on race pace right now. But still, that's good news for these three cars. Something just happened again to the 508. Let's take a quick look here about Peter Varga. What has happened here? I think a little bit of a touch, but doesn't get turned by the 612. There's been a lot of these little contacts here. I'm going to flash you back to a couple of laps ago and
just
show you.
Love that.
Yep, maybe there's another one here. Yep, another little love tap. That was a lap and a half ago. The one you saw first that just happened. And those drivers continuing to fight hard for that position. That's Varga and Howling, of course, fighting over 17th place. You got that Byford, Bubbins, Varga, and Howling fighting. Here he is, Jordan Daly. He's thinking about going up the inside, and he has done. And my replay has broken on me. So just give me a second here. I'll fix that for you. There we go. But coming right back on him is Velasco. Velasco going around the outside. He'll have the run, but he will be on the wrong side of the racetrack. Joe Dauber trying to pick a pony, quite literally, pun intended. Velasco around the outside. He has the position. They touch. Squeezed out to the outside is Daly. He's back to P2. Here comes Dauber looking around the outside of the Curva Grande. Does he have the horsepower in the grunt? No, he doesn't. They end up resetting at nil because after all of that great racing and some elbows out racing at that, nothing ended up coming of it. And that is the scariest thing, because Velasco withstood that, which is brilliant, but all that did was teach Dauber and Daly what they need to do better next time.
Yes, indeed. But as we can see in the background, the B5 and B6 and B4 are coming up onto the leaders if they remain to fight as well. Marco Badowski in that 45 Ferrari, the German, had a decent qualifying and now has an even better race currently in P4. Might, of course, want to snatch some podium positions, so he's doing a great job to win some time to compare to these guys. Jordan Daly still in that Ford Mustang, driving just behind the homemade Italian Velasca, and we can see that these Ford Mustang are a bit better than Ferrari in race trim. Of course, Joey Darwin took pole position, and he took pole position quite happily, but didn't quite happily lose the race lead here. And so that tells me that the Ford Mustang definitely is a beast on the straight. We could see it one lap ago at the exit of Prima Variante that the Mustang just got the legs on the Ferrari, and it's nothing. Well, it's sadly a deficit for Joey Dauber. Luca Velasca trying to break the toe here compared to Jordan Daly. Jordan Daly not grabbing for the toe as well, just staying on his line, maybe trying to cool down his tires, who knows. Luca Velasca still in the lead anyway, and with 7 minutes remaining, we can see Marco Badowski 1.9 seconds only behind Joey Dauber, so this could maybe get more spicy if the race goes on. Of course, we're nearing the end. Track temperature has fallen down a little bit, only 1 degree colder compared to qualifying. Oh, and it's Jake Howling trying to make a move on Trevor Byford, who's going wide in Prima Variante, and so Joe Howling indeed passes the McLaren, and so does Peter Varga.
Bubbins has fallen down to 18th place in all of this exchange. Remember, it was actually Bubbins that was behind Byford initially, and they've fallen down to 18th, and they've missed out on that because they're just out of the picture shot there. And the big winner of that was Howling, who with that double pass in the last couple of laps, that means they are back up to P3. Nobody holding a candle to Nicole Fox here today in race number 1. Ollie Mulder's P2, but now Howling back into 3rd, but not without challenge because Varga still very clearly in the picture here, but Howling making up for his early mistakes.
Yeah, indeed, he is definitely coming through the pack. I can remember him sitting in P19 a few laps ago, and now Jake Howling is making the most of his precious time here in... Oh, almost flies over the curb and doesn't lose control. I could swear he almost joined the SpaceX program, going flying over that
just make
curb,
sure he's alive.
Yes, sure. I think he has lost position to...
Oh, he has. You're
yes,
absolutely
indeed.
correct. He has done that. Let's do a long replay and show you what Dan was reacting to. I thought the car was just getting light over the curb. That's not what happened. It's not the entry to Ascari that was the problem. It was that right there, and he's off to the inside, and that will allow Peter Varga through, but he was able to defend against Trevor Byford, who was 3rd in that class a little while ago. So well spotted there.
Yeah, that's difficult part about Ascari. You've got those very high curbs. If the inside wasn't slippery enough, you've got these high curbs you need to take notice of. Ollie Mulder currently 2nd in silver class, trying to battle a fellow Aston Martin. That's the Aston Martin of Mike Redford. Mike Redford wasn't all too happy with his qualification, but currently in P12, also making some great moves here in this second or end stage of the race. We see Jordan Daly trying to make a move here now for the lead on the homemade Italian Velasca, currently in the Ford Mustang. Ford against Ford versus Ferrari. I've heard that story before somewhere in a movie, but Jordan Daly now on the outside of the last Monza turn, trying to get the better exit, but with a little bit of oversteer. That doesn't help for the Britishman, and now he slots in behind Velasca again. But does the Ford Mustang have the legs? Does it have the slipstream to maybe better Luca Velasca again in Prima Variante? Oh, there's a BMW back marker there helping Velasca out a little bit on home soil, but Jordan Daly, the Ford Mustang, it's just not enough to make another attempt for that first position, Jesse.
Yeah, that's Daniel Bouchard directly in front of them. I suspect they're going to take the outside of the Curva Grande, and in fact they do. That's excellent racecraft there by Bouchard, and we applaud that. Of course, their race perhaps has not gone as they would have planned, and getting flashed there by Joe Dauber, who's fallen off this group a little bit despite the two in front of them fighting. Dauber has not been able to sort of profit from that kind of racing, but all credit to Bouchard there. That's exactly what you want to see, and you find yourself in this position, and very wisely and concisely just allowing the leaders to get through and continuing your own race. You love to see all of that. The race for the lead continuing here between these two, Velasca and Daly. Daly briefly took the lead earlier. All three of the cars in this shot have led at some point. Of course, Dauber was on pole position and led them into turn number one. Velasquez led the majority of the race, and Daly, for a brief straightaway, had the lead. He's been trying to figure this out ever since. He's taken another crack at it to the outside here in the Parabolica. He's not going to have the run here, but could he do an over-under move? He's thinking about it. He's there. He's definitely not as wide as he previously was, but he's still sideways exiting the corner. That's going to hurt him at the other end of the pit straight.
Yes, definitely. But last time around, he just wasn't close enough. But he seems to be a little bit more close this time on the outside. He doesn't have the preferred line, Jordan Daly. Can he outbrake the Italian? Oh, there's contact, but they keep each other alive. Jordan Daly.
Oh, he's gonna turn him.
Oh, they're both around, and that gives a chance to Jordan Daly to remain in the lead. And that's Joey Dauber, who's now currently in second. But I can tell you that the Italian Velasca definitely isn't happy with that move. Look at Velasca currently dropping down to P7 and is now battling with the silver driver, Nicola Fox. Can she overtake the Ford Mustang driver, the Italian? And it seems like she has done so. And he needs to keep an eye on John Dalton as well, because he's in the rear of that picture. But look at Velasca still maintaining P7 after a bit of a dropout, and there comes John Dalton in the Porsche on Nicola Fox in the inside of the first Lesmo, and he hasn't quite done it contact, but they do keep each other alive. John Dalton currently in P8, just overtook Nicola Fox for P8, and it seems that Luca Velasca, Jesse, is running away from this group.
Yeah, it certainly will be. They'll be fuming as well. Hello to Kevin Boss, who's joined us late, says it's a Jesse Lee, it's a Dan Van Zutphen, and it is a sin. Well, let's take a look and show you what happened there on that pass for the lead. A little bit wide through there. Daly trying to set it up, a couple of little taps, sends him around. There was contact prior to that as well, as it all came undone. There was contact between Dalton and Nicole Fox as well. Let's take another look from the helicopter cam here, just coming into the Lesmo, and just a little bit of contact there. That's the second time Milk's favorite cookie has made that pass on Fox here today. Still not done and dusted for the overall lead. Nico Kuzma, by the way, trying to take fourth place away from Tom Shipston, and he's going to have to bail out of that situation. That will allow Shipston to have P4 back for the time being. Looked like they could have got that car turned. They would have been in with a shout, but they wasn't. The Tri-Wall Sim Racing number 7 is going to have to give it another go. Speaking of which, new players up in the front. You talked about Badowski closing in. Well, Badowski has in fact done that. They've lost Shipston, Kuzma, and Reese, and now Badowski makes up the third car in the top group. A little wide there was Jordan Daly, further allowing Dauber to close back in. Here comes Badowski. It was two Fords and a Ferrari. Now it's two Ferraris and a Ford.
Ring the bell for the last lap, because we certainly are in it, and Jordan Daly is doing everything he can to keep that first place. He already has won a race before. Is he going to win one race more? Joey Dauber tries to prevent it in that Ferrari, but the Ford Mustang is so good on the straight. I doubt, even with the slipstream in the last turn, can Joey Dauber make something of a move, maybe scare Jordan Daly and trying to put him out of his place. He's has got got some oversteer on the Parabolica in, well, earlier laps, and he doesn't seem to have that this time, so he's done enough. Jordan Daly is going to win provisionally this first race, I must say. Joey Garber on the 777 Ferrari gets second, and Marco Bedausi, talked about him before, gets third place in the Ferrari for Team Monkey Racing. Tom Shipston then in P4, Nick Kuisma in P5, slots out in the top 5. The fastest Aston Martin of the first race, Ben Rees in P6, John Dalton in P7, don't know how that happened. Velasca slots in P8, has almost led the entire race up until the last lap. Nicola Fox currently in P9, finisher Grim Lilith, controller driver in P10, and Ted Edwards Jesse in P11.
Yep, Nicole Fox wins it in the silver class. It was quite academic for Nicole today. A very chill race indeed for them. Second place will be Ollie Mulder, who fell down the order early on but was able to recover quite nicely. And Jake Howling did eventually lose third place in that class while we were watching the top three knock 7 bells out of each other. Peter Varga ended up back in front of the rest of the silvers and finished third for Team Monkey Racing. Everybody breathe in and exhale, because that was only race 1 of a 2-race series here tonight from Monza. They've got to do that again. And if I'm race winner Jordan Daly, do you attempt to explain your situation to Velasca now, or do you feel that it's self-evident that he was being held up or that the contact was inevitable? What's your take on that whole situation in T1?
Sorry, a commentator, you know, I'm not a fan of giving fast opinions and blaming the other parties, one party or the other. But I think the stewards can do a really good job to decide it. Jordan Daly will probably explain himself.
Really? You're going to cop
Yes.
out on me?
Yes.
Oh, my goodness. I can't believe it.
I can definitely tell Velasca will probably protest it, because I can imagine him fuming right now.
Well, I can see it both ways. Daly's going to say that Velasca didn't give him enough room on the outside after he was established, and that led to Velasca being crossed up and ended up making the contact more likely. Velasca's going to say that doesn't give you license to turn me. I didn't run you completely off the racetrack. That's going to be a, you know, this and that tit for tat kind of thing. I do agree with you. It's going to be interesting. I'm going to be waiting to see that report next week of what become of that incident. One more time, let's go back and potentially take a look at what happened between these two drivers. This may or may not be the correct replay. Let's see.
It is, and yeah, well, that is the incident, and it knocks Joey Darber on the gravel as well, and it's going to be a discussion point, let's say, for these drivers. It's going to be very interesting. That's why I said, you know, it's probably going to be a provisional poll. We don't know what the outcome of the stewards will be, and well, we certainly will know in a week's time, Jesse.
Yeah, I gotta say, there's some drivers upset. Some of you, I'm not going to explain how or why, but if you were eagle-eyed, you may have already seen that some of the drivers throughout this field were a little upset with one another. Now, looking at chat, Kevin Boss says, what drugs are these drivers on? Send pills. Sprint pills, says Dan. Dan, very nice. I like the wordplay. I think they should both get 60-second penalties, says Joe Dauber. Now, I wonder why Joe would think that. That's weird, right? That's very strange. Yes. Nico Kumpu is coming to chat and said, I think that's going to be a W for Joe Dauber. Now, these are interesting takes. I like to hear them. I can't say I particularly disagree with any of those takes.
Yes, I'd say the same thing.
Yeah, that's one for the stewards, certainly in the future. So I ask again, Callum Kerrigan, you missed a chaos sandwich, is what you've missed. Dan, I'm going to ask you this now. After you saw the end of that race, that had to have been the chaotic one, right? This is going to be a calmer
Yes,
race, race 2.
yes, it had to be the chaotic race, but you know what? I don't think it is. I think we need to all stay here and watch for an even more chaotic race, Jesse.
I just don't know if that's physically possible, but we will see if that is the case. What you're watching are the cars back in the pit lane. This is not Parc Ferme. They are allowed to work on the race car. This is the holdover before race number 2 starts in a couple of minutes' time. They will not start in reverse grid or how they finished race 1. Instead, they will revert back to how they qualified at the beginning of the race or the weekend. So Joe Dauber will go back to pole, and that will mean Falaska is up there with Daly and Shipston, as now they are back on the grid. We have 5 minutes to sort of chill out here on the initial grid.
This is the fun thing about sprint races. Sorry for interrupting you, Jesse, but this is the thing about these sprint races. We just had a chaotic race 1 where the emotions are probably still quite high from possibly Falaska's point, Daly's point, Joey Darber's point, and everyone who maybe had an incident in the field. And those emotions, out of experience, do not run down in a 10-minute break. So like I said, it might get even spicier. We hope, of course, to keep it fair and clean, but this is just, I think, a nice thing about having such a short format, 2 30-minute races so close to each other. It spices up things a bit.
Certainly can do. Folks, if you are interested in some of the chaos yourself, you can go to racerci.com and join us for any upcoming race mid-season if you like. World Tour in about a week and a half's time from now, the 24 hours of Red Bull Ring. Sign up your team now and be on the grid for that for World Tour. That's live on the 8th of June. And of course, we are here in the Wednesday Sprint Championship, and this is the 3rd round of Monza. Got 3 more rounds left. We'll be at Indianapolis next week, and then Donington Park, and then finishing up in Valencia. Same format throughout, 2 30-minute sprint races in GT3 cars. And yes, you can drive the Mustang. 1 race left in the Jag versus V12 saga, that Laguna Seca on Monday. And that finale will be very interesting indeed. It's been a close affair, believe it or not, between the Jag and the V12. Both of those manufacturers exchanging wins and championship leads at some point. It's very close indeed. The finale at Laguna Seca coming out on Monday. For this and more, racerci.com. And while we have a minute, just a big thank you, of course, to our partners that make this race and every race possible. AK Esports, Driver 61, Fanatec, digitalmotorsport.com, and Go Setups. Quite a few Go Setups going on the cars out there tonight. And of course, we literally couldn't do this without the help of AK Esports. For more information, go to akesports.it. Well, 2 minutes left to go. And Dan, I think what we're going to do, we're going to take a momentary break here. We're not going to cut away from live pictures, though, and we'll be right back for the start of race number 2.
seconds. Seconds. 10 seconds.
One chaotic race checked off, one potentially chaotic race more to go as we go for the second 30 minutes here on Monza Speedway. Jordan Daly currently in the lead. Joey Darber qualified on pole position, so he will again start on pole position with, if I'm not mistaken, Jordan Daly in second and Valaska in, no, it is Valaska in second, Jordan Daly in third. Emotions will still be high given the incident we saw at the end of race 1 for positions on the lead, so expect some spicy battles for the Italian Valaska and Jordan Daly in the Mustang as well, but I won't be surprised if we see Joey Darber get tangled up in some battles as well. And of course the rest of the midfield will be well, experiencing some tough battles as well, because it's Monza, it's chaotic, and I'm curious if Joey Darber takes it away a little bit earlier than he did last time, because last time he didn't have the greatest of start. Will he have a great start this time? A very powerful Ford Mustang on the left hand side, as we can see Mulder having a drive through, and this time Joey Darber has a much better start compared to the Ford Mustang, but you can just see the Ford Mustang gaining and gaining on that Ferrari However, he's still in front. He still has the inside. That's Jordan Daly making it 3 wide on the inside of the first turn. Will we have contact? Yes, we will. Joey Darber still on P1. That's Velasquez needing to take avoiding action there, but the top 3 remains the same. As we see some cars going through the grass of the first turn as well. Peter Ljungqvist, where the damaged Lamborghini last time, now currently in P18, getting chased by a McLaren. Who that is, I have no clue at the moment. And we can see people going into turn 2 of the braking zone. That's Mike Redford not getting his braking spot right and going into the side of Peter Ljungqvist. So a chaotic turn 2 at the start of this race. Carlos Calatayud had an incident coming out of Ascari last race and is now trying to make up for that, battling Peter Varga in the Ford Mustang. Almost a little bit of contact I might say, and we're going 3 wide into Ascari, almost, Jesse.
Very close quarters racing. Joe Dalbert did get away cleanly that time. Velasquez up to P2, and now Daly in third place. Shipston and Reese, your top 5. Badowski in tow all the way back here outside of the top 15. This is where the real scrapping is going on, as a couple of cars have gone off the racetrack. The Aston of Ollie Mulder, I believe that is, who already had a drive-through for being out of position on the start, has further complicated his race number 2, and that will not be what the Aston driver had in store. But out in front of the field, Joe Dauber for Rebound Racing, doing what he couldn't in race number 1, and that's a clean breakaway. Just about the biggest lead we've seen in the lead for this entire weekend. 1.6 seconds is not a whole lot, but look at what's going on back here. Daly did an aggressive move down into 1. Oh, and it's a huge crash. It's a huge crash, and I believe Grim Lilith was involved. And it's cars everywhere and carnage. Multiple cars have been taken out. Several ended up backwards into the Prima Variante, and I have no clue what exactly transpired there, but we're going to try and sort it out and bring it to you. Ted Edwards has immediately returned down to the pit lane. I suspect they've been involved, but just so, I'm not entirely sure.
Wow, I just got a heart attack. I can definitely imagine some drivers like Joey Darber, Velasquez, Jordan Daly seeing their lives flash before their eyes, because that was a incident we not normally see on Monza in this kind of racing, but Carlos Calatayud has gained numerous of places because of that, and I think we will see a race replay. This is going into turn 1, 3 wide. That normally doesn't go. Ted Edwards, oh, and that's Grim Lilith. I couldn't do anything about that, collecting everyone into the line, and that's a 3 wide moment, simply taken too narrow, and it's a very unfortunate big incident which, Jesse, in my opinion, could be easily avoided.
Yeah, I think that was Ted Edwards that just got on the grass, and braking on grass is not conducive to excellent stopping power, and that caused a chain reaction of events that sent the 115 to Lilith in backwards, and I believe they got who was that? Badowski, I believe that might have been that they got. They also clipped your silver leader here, Nicole Fox, on the way through, but luckily Nicole was able to keep the car going the right way. They've held on to the lead, but Jake Howling is that silver car, that silver Porsche in the background. So an actual fight on their hands here for that spot, but one of the scariest incidents that you could ever see in a race like this. We're gonna look at this one more time, I think, and I'm gonna try and select, yes indeed, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna show you that replay, and I'm going to select Grim Lilith's position here. Now, this is not John Dalton's. Okay, so that was Ted Edwards, John Dalton, and Grim Lilith.
Oh, wow.
And Grim just gets shot out of the middle, or gets shot out of off the racetrack as if it was a hot dog leaving a bun, and somehow after all of that, yeah, they're in the top 10.
Wow, and the contact was narrow as well, a few centimeters off, and contact did all all this carnage would have been avoided, but sadly in racing it doesn't turn out that way always. Fact remains is that Grim Lilith is in P9 after that shocking incident. We can see a race replay, Keith Whiffle battling Marco Badowski. That is Keith Whiffle making contact with another McLaren. That is Martin Foster, the Englishman and the Belgian man make contact. Keith Whiffle out of pit lane, but Martin Foster still in pit lane, now exiting pit lane after what is possibly damage repairs done. That Edwards, he also has his damage repairs done, as he remains in the fighting pack, as you could say. That Edwards currently dead last after that incident, but having repaired all the damage, goes on his way. Another race replay is to watch here. Martin Foster, that is the incident earlier on, and this is very strange. BMW is all over the place trying to avoid.
They're all damaged,
Martin
I think,
Foster.
or something.
Yes, but look at it was a not so streamlined front end of Martin Foster. In any case, we go through with the live action. Mike Redford currently P17 trying to overtake Jordan Bobbins, who's doing an amazing job in the silver class, currently P5 in the silver class if I'm not mistaken. And Jordan Bobbins in the number 65 Ferrari, trying to keep Mike Redford at bay. But Mike Redford, we know he's fast. He wasn't too happy with qualifying, but again, just like last race, he's trying to move up into the field. We see a yellow flag at turn 2. That is for the number 37, so that's Bouchard. In the BMW, he's currently in P22. Daniel Bouchard, the Canadian, coming out for BMW and Team Schnitzel, but not really moving, Jesse. So I think that's Bouchard out of the race. Maybe he stalled his engine and cannot resume any further.
He's going to go to pit lane. I think this is unrelated. This is Keith Whiffle, but I noticed Keith Whiffle was in pit lane, and of course you don't have to stop. And yep, in the Lesmo, and double tap for good measure, and hard into the wall is the 157 of Keith Whiffle. That's returned them to the pit lane. We saw Bouchard do the exact same thing, or not the exact same thing, but they have returned to pit lane is what I mean to convey here. Kaladian for Rebound Racing, racing the Jake Howling car. Howling is now in the lead. Now, where is Nicole Fox gone? What has happened to the 314? I don't have any replay that would indicate what has happened to Nicole Fox, but they are well down the order in the next round racing McLaren, and that is a ton of time loss, despite the fact that they have not shown up. That wasn't them in the most recent replay that we saw, was it?
You might be actually right. Who knows? However, you could replay it again, of course, but if we don't, as Jesse said, if we don't get something message through the system, then it must be, or we think it is, a self-inflicted mistake. And given there is no damage, I can't see any damage on the McLaren of Nicola Fox. It could be self-inflicted and just a little spin, but a little spin is enough to throw you all around to the midfield, or even worse, the back. But as we can see, some Aston Martins, some filthy battles here. Nicole Fox going wide as well, and now getting overtaken by Ted Edwards as well. Mike Redford is finding himself in a duel against the Ferrari and another Ferrari, and so Mike Redford trying to fend off, that is Malcolm and Bobbins, I think it is. Two blue Ferraris trying to overtake one red Aston Martin, and it does get spicy. We talked about it before, Jesse. Can this race get even more chaotic? I think the answer is a very clear yes, as Marco Badowski for Team Monkey Racing tries to overtake the Portuguese of Bernardo Teixeira, does so cleanly into turn 1, moves up to P9.
Yeah, that number 45 is anything but clean, though. It's definitely got some battle scars on it already. Here's a contact with Grim Lilith and Richard Whiffle, I do believe we're about to see here. I'm assuming this is just minor contact. Yeah, just a little bit of argy-bargy, nudgy there in Ascari as they all kind of jockey for position. Nothing crazy going on there. Aaron Jackson in 19th place. They are currently fighting Matthew Malcolm. Malcolm joined us in the pause between races and says bonjour from the back of the grid. They've certainly moved up since then. By the way, all of that drama that we have seen thus far, we've only lost one car. Everybody else has repaired their car and continued on. Callum Kerrigan in chat said a moment of silence for the post-race stewards. I think they're going to need more than a moment of silence. I think they're going to need collective prayer on behalf of everyone that's a member of this club. Kevin Ball says, can't wait to possibly join this carnage for the last round. I can't tell if that's sarcasm or not, but either way, I know he will be.
It's Matt Malcolm going into the gravel trap currently. And he's gone as well. Matt Malcolm, what's happened there? Just gone straight into the gravel trap and decided to call it a day. He's already slowing down here on the straight.
Something broke.
Yes, this must be something with a steering wheel issue, because you don't quit too fast, and well, it doesn't normally happen. A car doesn't turn.
Yeah, Malcolm's had issues hardware related in the past as well. I would like to think that that's been rectified, but it doesn't appear so, and that's a carbon copy of the last time Malcolm retired with something like that. Is they just sort of pulled off. They had brakes, so it wasn't a pedal issue. It definitely didn't turn at all, as if the wheel itself was no longer steering the car. So the 199, the Malk Racing car, in the pit lane that time through, as more drama continues and more questions continue to be raised. Dauber, Falaska, Daly out in front. Shipston and Dalton now your top 5. Jake Howling is leading in the silver class over Peter Varga. Bruno Teixeira make up your top 3 in the silver class. Nicole Fox has already rebounded up into the 4th place position. So as long as Nicole's able to continue this, and who knows, maybe they catch Teixeira. Doesn't seem like it's too far away, and beyond the possibility, if they definitely get a podium here, that will be absolutely damage limitation and mitigated for this race, especially after the impressive round win for the very first one. So, man, it's going to take a whole week. I'm glad, Dan, that we have 7 days to think about this before the next round, because it's going to take that long to digest everything that's happened. Oh, and it's still happening. Huge crash into the background. Aaron Jackson involved, and I don't know who that was initially. And
that's Jordan Bubbins.
Was Jordan Bubbins? You're absolutely right. Talk us through the replay.
Race replay indeed. Exiting Ascari, Jordan Bubbin loses control, veers onto the track, and just about hits Aaron Jackson. And if I dare say, maybe Aaron Jackson could have continued there, but completely stalled on the racetrack, so would have lost positions nonetheless. That's a very scary incident at Mike Redford trying to pull off a move for P15, attacking the 115 Ferrari for Grim Lilith there, but that was a very scary incident which sadly didn't have the most fortunate of fate, Jesse, but that's a part of racing. We've seen a chaotic Monza 2 times here at this evening, as Mike Redford trying to overtake Grim Lilith for a very ballsy move outside of turn 2, and it's a very impressive overtake for Mike Redford. Gets P15 and takes that off the only controller driver on the grid, if I'm not mistaken, Grim Lilith, and tries to charge his way to Peter Lundqvist, the Swedish driver who had some damage last race. Doesn't seem to have any this race, Jesse.
Yeah, by the way, Matthew Malcolm's joined us and says that they kept dropping. Or their FPS dropped below 20 FPS. It wasn't safe to drive. And I don't know how you score that. That's technically a software issue, but if it's being caused by hardware, that's a hardware issue. Chicken or egg situation here, I'm not sure, but unfortunate. But we do enjoy having Malcolm use sort of common sense and safety in a situation like that. We would have not known that otherwise, and they could have continued on, and it could have been very dangerous for themselves and other people. But he's theorizing that it could potentially be a memory leak from something going on in his system. Kevin Boss is blaming Google Chrome. You love to see it.
I always compare these software hardware issues to mechanical failures in the
Sure.
racing sport. You can have a flat tire, your engine can blow, your upshifting, downshifting can work, your electronics can fail, your hydraulics can fail in real life, and that almost happens every race. And we're lucky in esports that that almost does not happen every race, that your steering wheel breaks or something internally a computer breaks. And so it's I always like to compare it to the mechanical failures of the sport. It can be a little bit of a relieving. These things can happen. It's not only in esports, it's in real life as well. And well, if you have any hardware or software issues, you are definitely not the only one who has had one before. I can speak of experience. Very frustrating when it happens, but you can't do anything about it. And so we continue with this race. Monza, Temple of Speed, a very fast racetrack. Fastest speed trap ever set here is by Lewis Hamilton in his F1 car, 360 kilometers an hour. I do presume that was with a slipstream, because normally F1 doesn't reach these speeds. Those GT3s we see driving here definitely don't reach those speeds, but that doesn't burn the action. That doesn't downgrade the action any less. Peter Varga currently in P8 trying to overtake the Porsche of Jake Howling. I've said it before that Ford Mustang has some legs, as Nico Kuisma trying to fend off the Ferrari of Grim Lilith. Actually, I think Nico Kuisma overtook the Ferrari of Grim Lilith, because if you can recall, Grim Lilith did have some battles with the Finnish driver. I'm sorry. Peter Varga currently trying to overtake Jake Howling with his teammate.
Yeah, I was going to say, what do you do
rear.
here? What do you do here? You're two different classes of teammate. The pro Team Monkey Racing drivers behind the silver, but I think you just got to take a number and wait in line, and that's exactly what it was. Excellently executed pass by Peter Varga in the Seconda Variante, and now you should see Badowski do the exact same into Lesmo, and that is very sensible driving, I will admit, by everybody here, Jake Howling and everybody else. Peter Varga, though, will go to the lead in the silver class as Howling very nearly loses it, as Ben Reese trying to make the pass back there now.
I dare to say this has been the cleanest racing we've seen so far. Ben Rees, currently the second Aston Martin in the field, could be confused with the driver that crashed on earlier in this race. That would have been Mulder in the 28 Aston Martin, but there's still an Aston Martin in the top 10. Ben Rees for Bottle Job Racing, as we can see that was in the background fighting another Ford Mustang that probably is Bruno Teixeira, the Portuguese driver in the 720 McLaren, trying to move up some spot, possibly overtaking Jake Howling. Jake Howling doesn't really want to lose that top 10 spot, I can imagine. And with 11 minutes and 30 seconds to go, he still has a long way to fend off Bruno Teixeira. The McLaren is coming closer and closer into turn 1. Can he line up a move into turn 1 on the inside in the braking zone? Can't quite pull it off, so he has to slot in P11 once again. There's not a great exit by Jake Howling, and that gives Bruno Teixeira a possibility to overtake the Porsche driver currently on the outside. Now that's a really long way, but does your McLaren have the legs? Otherwise he has to do it into turn 2 on the side of the Porsche, maybe getting some side shafts as well, but decides once again, very sensible driving here, Jesse, to back out of it and maybe wait on the mistake of Jake Howling.
All this is helping Nicole Fox as well, as Teixeira doesn't really have to pass Howling. It just has to frustrate them and slow them down with the defensive mirror driving that you have to do when you're trying to stay where you are. And
yes,
all that's doing is helping Fox catch up. They're not that far behind. They're less than 3 seconds behind this group. In fact, you can see Nicole's car. It's the pink and blue McLaren in the background here as they are continuing to catch up. We saw earlier that Luca Velasquez had caught Joe Dauber. That gap was nearly 2 seconds earlier on in the race. Luca Falasca has the quickest lap of the race and has run them down, but now that gap has stabilized around 8/10 for the time being. Meanwhile, Ben Reese continuing to fight Peter Varga here. Varga's got to be very sensible about this. Reese is not in their class, and all this is doing is dragging Varga back down to his other class rivals. Folks, do you remember before we went green tonight, I mentioned twice, pay attention to the silver class. They will not finish where they started. This is exactly what I'm talking about. We've had 2 rounds now. This makes number 3 where that has been the case. This has been some excellently intriguing silver battling back and forth with many different leaders. Ben Reese able to make that pass. It will be of little consequence to Varga as long as Varga doesn't get held up. In fact, looking to the inside in the Curva Grande there and continuing to look in the inside, because that has slowed up Varga enough when Reese passed. Look who's back. It's Howling and Teixeira.
Yeah, and indeed, but Peter Varga wants to overtake the
this is
P8 in
horrible.
Aston Martin. Yes, it's horrible for him. Oh, it's even almost more horrible because there was a little touche on the inside of Peter Varga. A little bit of more contact. Jake Howling wisely decides to back off, and so Peter Varga loses more time. And I can tell you the reason why Peter Varga wants that P8 so bad. It's because he can put another car in front of Nicole Fox and Bernardo Teixeira to secure his P1, but that's easily said than done. As we can see, Jake Howling on the inside of his car, he doesn't quite make it. Bernardo Teixeira
Nicole's back.
moves up a place, moves up a place with a very lovely move outside of the Ascari, and you can see Nicole Fox gaining and gaining on Jake Howling. Can she be a little bit later on the brakes in the last turn, give each other space? And Nicole Fox, that move is almost done and dusted. Oh my god, that's Jake Howling in the barriers.
Jake Howling has been shot off of the racetrack. Now, was that contact or was that by themselves? Let's take a look. That's a hard impact to the tire wall. And I don't know if there was contact. That might have been a tiny bit. And is it a snap that's into the barrier? It is. The car snaps in the parabolica, and that is a huge crash. Major damage to Howling's Porsche there that will certainly take them out of contention.
Most definitely, Jesse, and that's unfortunate because Jake Howling was doing a pretty good job, but he's currently in P15. Maybe he's able to gain some places, but with that damage, I do doubt it. Nicole Fox going wide there, misjudged her braking point into turn 2, and so she loses a lot of time compared to Bernardo Teixeira and also Peter Varga. Now, Jesse, time is running out of this race. 7 minutes to go, so that's roughly 6 laps to go, and Nicole Fox doesn't have that much time to gain a few more positions. Who also doesn't have more time to gain some positions or gain a position is the Italian driver Falasca. He does have the fastest lap, but he doesn't have the race lead currently. We saw these two battle earlier on this race. We saw these two battle earlier on the beginning of race 1, and it seems that Falasca now 8/10, only 8/10 behind Joe Darber, is closing in and closing in. Jesse, what do you think? Can Joey Darber remain in the lead?
Yeah, I think he will. I think Joe is one of those drivers that really is good at defensive driving when they need to be. I think a lot of times Joe isn't as hard-nosed as some of the others, but I think at the end here, I think the window has passed for Falasca. If Falasca is going to make a move, it's going to have to be decisive or it's going to end in tears, and even if it does, I don't think Joe's going to give it up too easily. Teixeira looking to the inside of Whittle, actually to the outside of Whittle there, nearly runs themselves out of room, but gets it back in control for the moment as Peter Lundqvist in the number 99 Lamborghini closes back in for 12th place.
Why is Bernardo Teixeira currently on P12? I don't know, because a lap ago he was still in front of Nicole Fox. So he must have made a mistake, if I'm not mistaken, but I think oh, that's Mike Redford tapping the Swedish driver, and they almost go round once again. It's not been the race day of Peter Lundqvist. It's also not been the race day for Mike Redford. Just a little tap is enough to unsettle both cars and lose them both 2 positions and a lot of time in the process. We could see a purple car there just narrowly avoiding the Porsche of Jake Howling, but the battle for the lead in the silver class and the pro class is still on. This is Finnish driver Nico Kuisma avoiding the Porsche of Jake Howling we saw earlier on this lap. And well, they probably tussle it out with this remaining 4 minutes on the race clock. Velasca 5/10 behind only on Joey Darby. He's closing and closing in. His best lap was a 147.175. His last lap was a 147.487. Luca Velasca wants to win on home soil, especially because arguably it's been taken away from him last race around. Of course, the incident with Jordan Daly and Luca Velasca will definitely be discussed later in this week. But for now, Velasca is on the rear of Joey Darby.
Yeah, it sure is. Joe is doing their best to stay in front, and that might be all they need to do, is just enough to get this win. Velasca has turned up the wick a little bit though, and it's closed back in. That gap was just about a second or so a lap ago. It's now half a second. Sometimes it's 0.3 of a second. That Ford Mustang, the Proton Competition liveried 32, has done a really good job of closing the gap down again. This is obviously an offensive, but this isn't going to help. Hitting the curb, running out wide, that's going to lose them a little bit of time, you would imagine. But it looks like, on my relative at least, that it actually still went down. The Mustang pulling on the Ferrari, and definitely in the braking zone here in the Parabolica, able to close right back up to the back of them. Oh, and it's going to be a big mistake, and it's going to be a potential race costing incident here.
Wow.
He got a little bit too much wheel. We heard about this from some of the Mustang drivers, about it just being a little free, and that's what's going to happen. He's trying to rotate on the throttle. An excellent save by Luca there. But that will be all she wrote. There's not enough time, simply put, for Velasca to get back up there and have another go with about 2 laps in this race. There is still time for this driver to consider making another pass on Velasca. And as much as I would hate to see an on-track incident that puts them in a bad spot, I'm curious, is Velasca willing to race Daly cleanly at this point? Is Velasca fuming or not? I hope we don't actually get the answer to that question.
Well, the only thing Velasca can do is drive away as quick as possible, but given Jordan Daly doesn't have the pace, that's the yellow flag, and that is not the leader. I thought for a second that could be the leader, Joe Darby. I got a small heart attack, but it's the Ford Mustang of number 8, that Edwards, and so tensions do stay on a low for Joey Darby. Tensions stay on a high for Daly and Velasca. Daly just creeping in a little bit, but it's not gonna be enough anytime soon. That's Keith Whiffle with Ted Edwards. And that's a strange move there by Ted Edwards. I don't think he did that on purpose, given he is still stalling, waiting for Keith Whiffle. A fun fact, if I'm correct, see, Keith Whiffle and Richard Whiffle are both son and dad. Correct me if I'm wrong. Yeah, they are definitely family members. Lovely to see here in this RCI racing community, as we can see Keith Whiffle just in pit lane now. Joey Darby, ring the bell again for the last lap, because we are in it once again, and this time it seems to go the way of the Joey Darby way, because last time, of course, again got taken away from him, but this time he's 3 seconds into the lead, and I don't see that change anytime soon.
Yeah, the real winner out of all this chaos between these top 3 the last few races, the real winner is Joe Darby here, because you got Velasca and Daly, who may not be too happy with each other. Dauber was unaffected by any of that. Dauber gets a come up off of Velasquez incident, gets P2 in that first race, where they were likely going to end up a slightly distant P3. They get P2 out of that. And who knows, Dauber may, with post-race stewarding, go on to win that race. He stayed out of trouble here. He's weathered the storm a couple of times by Velasquez, catching him. He's going to get the win here. The real winner is the Rebound Racing 777. Just a little bit of housekeeping before we end today. Daniel Bouchard has left the racetrack, did so some time ago due to a circuit breaker popping. Well, some days it's just not your day, and that is certainly one of those instances. 22 cars left on track, 21 of them circulating. We certainly had a higher attrition rate here than we did in race 1. But it looks like Joe Dauber coming to get that checkered flag.
2 races done. 1 winner was provisional Jordan Daly. 1 winner is certainly Joey Dauber here for the 2nd race. Takes the win. And, well, from pole position, he takes the win. Velasquez in 2nd place. Daly in 3rd place. And so your top 3 hasn't changed since qualifying in race 2. Tom Shipson getting another P4. We haven't seen a lot of Tom Shipson, and that's probably a good thing. He will be delighted. Will also be delighted is John Dalton, P5 in the Porsche. Carlos Calatayud, P6. Marco Bedowski, even with that incident, P7 on the grid. Ben Riems, P8. Peter Varga, P9 on the grid. Nicola Fox will come home in 2nd place in the silver class, which means Peter Varga has taken the victory, a well-deserved victory for the silver class. Bruna Teixeira also finishes, and so well, the race is most certainly done here. Grim Lilith, Byford, Mulder, Foster, and the only one to get over the line is Keith Whiffle in last place. Now, Jesse, if those weren't 2 entertaining races, I don't know what is.
Well, it certainly left us with a lot of conversation topics for the near future.
Love it.
Yeah, you love that. And in addition to that, there's going to be some interesting conversation between some of the drivers, you would have to imagine. But the day going to Joe Dauber here for certain. The Rebound Racing car and the championship really preserved in both classes, you'd have to say. The mix-up, a great job by Nicole Fox rebounding from what I felt like was 5th or 6th in their class. They were well down the order. They had to pass more than 3 or 4 cars to even get back to P2, but they do. They get 2nd, so no real harm done there in the championship fight for them, and they will continue on, of course, in the near future. The pro battle, no matter what the outcome of any disagreements or steward inquiries or whatever, that battle is also preserved because of how it all shook out. But what a crazy day at Monza. We never have a boring one, but we saw some excellent passing, but some certain chaos and drama as well out there on the racetrack. It was not a perfect day by any stretch of the imagination, but I tell you what, let's talk to our winner here in Pro, Joe Dauber.
Hi.
Hello, Joe.
Good evening. How's it going? I hope that was enjoyable.
It certainly was enjoyable, but I think it was more enjoyable for you taking the win, Joe.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty rare that I get a win in RCI. So yeah, maybe I'll get one for the first race. I'm not so sure what happened there really. But yeah, the second one was pretty nice, I would say. I don't know what happened to Velasquez at the start, but in the first race he was able just to drive past me in the start on the first straight before T1. But in that second race, I guess he just didn't quite have the getaway that he wanted.
I was about to ask because you definitely had the pace in the first race or in the second race, but in the first race it seemed just a little slower than the second race. Any ideas how that happened?
Yeah, well, schoolboy error, you could say. 26.0 psi on the rear tires in race 1.
Yes, that could be an explanation.
Well, I don't. I'm new to this car. And
of course,
I'd only just done practicing on the RCI server, and it was wet every time. So in the first race, I was kind of learning how to drive it in the dry a little bit as well.
Wow, so it's almost an improvised win, you could say.
Yeah, but I'll take it.
Yes, every win is a win.
Yeah, no, it was fun. It was fun. I was kind of hoping that Jordan and Velasquez would be fighting a little bit more in the second race to make it a bit easier after the first race, but I don't know why Jordan didn't have the same pace in race 2. Maybe he had damage that I've not seen.
It will probably be a mystery to us all. My partner in crime, Jesse Lee, do you have any questions for Joey Darber?
Yeah, Joe, I just got to first of all say that was absolutely brilliantly raced, and it was very different race 1 to race 2. And when we have these little sprint races, I always tend to ask drivers this whenever they just come up a little bit short in one, but they dominate the next one. Did you learn something in that first race that you were able to immediately apply for race number 2? And don't just say, well, yeah, I didn't lose the lead. But was there something that you physically learned, like, all right, I got Velasquez's number now?
Not particularly, I don't think. I think my fastest lap in race 1 was faster than race 2. But basically, I was on the pace from the start. A bit more experience on the track, and I could. At the start of race 1, I was braking a little bit short on T1, and yeah, I got a better brake marker for the second race, which helped.
There you go. Back to you, Dan. And congratulations.
Now it's raining on the server.
Yeah, of course it is. Of course it is. But before we let you go, Joe, is there anybody you want to shout out, say hello to at home?
Well, the wife won't be watching, but Carlos for keeping me amused on the chat. He had a great race too. I think he went from 16th to 6th. So yeah, and of course the Rebound Racing team.
Great. Well, congratulations, Joey. Maybe a win for next round. Who knows? I'll congratulate you on this one, and well, we can't wait to see you in action again for the next round.
Thanks a lot. Bye.
Next in line, we have a driver who had quite a bumpy ride, Peter Varga. You have, well, again, had quite a bumpy 2 races here at Monza. How have you experienced it?
Not very well, I could say. I'm quite disappointed for today, not for the results, but for the driving standards all around. I should not be in a position that I have to avoid cars behind me not braking correctly. I don't know what was everybody on today. I think I made my feelings quite clear after race 1 in the chat. And I kind of hope people start to understand it, how to drive in a pack when cars ahead of you are expected to slow down earlier because they have cars ahead of them. Aside from that, the results are great. I felt really good in the car. For once, the Mustang really fitted my driving with everything, so I had quite good hopes for the event. Race 1, I got a podium, so I'm happy. I wanted the podium, I got a podium, I'm happy. Race 2, I felt that I can take the win. If things go right, things did go right. So I'm very happy with my, I think, first GT3 silver class win.
Very much.
That's the first one. I'll go drink for that.
Well, congratulate you anyway, Peter. Does that change your point of view any on the championship? Of course, you've won valuable points. How are you looking at the championship? Do you want to fully go for it? Of course. How are you looking at the championship?
I don't know, because I feel like this was a regular race for me, at least for my side. I think the Mustang really came to its strengths around Monza compared to other cars, so I feel like this result was a must do around here, and what we have remaining on the calendar.
Alright, well, before I take you off to my partner, I just want to ask, did you also, just like Joey, almost didn't practice in the rain or in the dry?
I did practice in the rain. I did like 15 laps probably in the rain total, and I was just hoping it's not gonna rain because the car did not really feel nice. I don't really feel in control, so when I joined the server and I saw it raining, I was kind of scared, but then it went away, so I got really happy. Because in the wet, I had like 40 laps practiced, and the setup was really nice, so yeah, I was hoping for a dry period today.
All right. Well, that's all from me. Is there anyone you want to give a shout out to? Maybe the team or a driver on the grid?
Shout out to my head engineer, head mechanic, for a little bit of help with the car setup that helped make it a bit more stable. And to the random YouTube guy that made the base setup. Thank you.
All right. Well, congratulations on your win, Peter. We're going to see you in action in the next round, I presume. Again, congratulations, and can't wait to see you next time.
Thanks.
Well, there was all but a calm few races here at Monza, and we probably do have some less calm races on the calendar too. As Jesse said, Team Jack versus Team Austin is on the calendar in June 3rd, the last race at Laguna Seca. And of course, we do have the upcoming Friday GT2 Season 3 on the Nürburgring. First round of the sign-ups open on May 31st. So be sure to tune in or to sign up yourself for those spicy races. Friday GT2 Season always delivers. Jesse, what do you think of the evening?
Well, I think it's going to be one of those where drivers are going to need to talk to each other. They're going to need to settle this amongst themselves, reach an understanding if they possibly can. The rest of that's going to be down into the steward's hands. It's always messy when you come to Monza with this many race cars, and we didn't expect anything less in these two 30-minute sprint races. I'll tell you one thing. When the dust settles, we're going to have more racing for you here on RCI TV. Talked about the Jag versus V12 finale, but we're just halfway in this season. We'll join you next week, next Wednesday, from Indianapolis, the road course. And that track, it typically puts on some really nice racing with the back and forth sort of nature of that particular track. But yeah, it's one of those that I think a lot of drivers are going to be happy to leave. And if you survive today, you're more than a little bit excited. If you are a Joe Dauber, for instance, you're pretty pumped about how it went. Bent fenders and bent feelings, though, Dan.
Yes, most definitely, but maybe they can set them aside for the next race at Indianapolis. Who knows? Next race at Indianapolis will be on June 19th. For now, it's been a pleasure to commentate you here. I'm David Zutphen, your lead commentator. Jesse Lee was your co-commentator and broadcaster. We'll see you back at June 19 in Indianapolis. Goodbye.